I was thinking about this the other day of like, how do you define superhero? Because we see a lot of superhero movies nowadays.
Yeah.
I remember having this conversation with a friend at one point. It's like, look at Batman. Batman's deal, when it's to fight crime, technically you're not a hero unless you're trying to save somebody. Because if you're just fighting crime, then you're a vigilante. What actually makes Batman a hero is that he doesn't kill.
Oh.
Because the people that he saves in fighting crime now are even the criminals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And then he does eventually go out of his way and save people in a lot of his stories. But the principal thing the Batman's there to do is to actually be a vigilante. Someone who fights crime but is not an officer of the law.
Yeah.
Superman is not just a hero, because he does save people, right? That's the principal thing that Superman seems to do. And he says he stands for truth and justice in the American way. Now it's just truth and justice. He stopped saying "and the American way."
Oh.
It just became just truth and justice.
Superman invades Iraq.
It's probably around that. But Superman is a superhero because he saves people, hero, and he has powers, super, right? If you look at it, the scale on the other side of it, on the opposite end of vigilante, which is somebody who fights crime, is someone who fights for himself, an anti-hero. When it comes to Spider-Man, he's got the superpowers, and he is heroic. That's definitely something that comes across in Across the Spider-Verse.
Whoa.
The new Spider-Man film by Sony, the animated one that came out, the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, and we'll tell you right now, the middle edition of this, what we think is a trilogy. Because, yes, there's another movie coming. There's no post-credit scene.
You sound so disappointed.
I'm disappointed because I feel like I walked away from the movie theater with only half a movie. I'll be less disappointed when I see the third movie. But do I think this was a bad movie? Absolutely not. This movie, I kept thinking of the word phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's very well done. But on the topic of Spider-Man, like if you just think about who Spider-Man is, I remember reading the story about like how Stan Lee first came up with him. It's just he got the idea of it, just the concept of Spider-Man, of somebody who has to perform acrobatics to save the day. He's like a vigilante who's given like a set of powers that aren't necessarily as coherent with a spider as you might think, but that enable him to do, like, hold on, you get super strength, super speed, incredible grace.
I don't know about speed.
He's faster than most of the people, like his reflex time, obviously.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
And his ability, he's not like the Flash, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I guess reflexes just in general.
Yeah.
Like his athletic abilities are heightened quite a lot.
His spider sense.
Yeah.
Like this is vaguely making sense. I guess if you got some bug powers, you'd be pretty strong.
Yeah.
The web shooting has been in some contention because the Sam Raimi movies made them come out of his wrist.
Which I liked so much better.
Really?
Yeah, because that made it like... That was the powers the spider gave him. That was part of that. There's no running out of it. Whereas in these ones, when it's a gadget, officially every single spider person has to be intelligent enough to not only come up with this, but then make it.
But that's the thing, is that originally he did come up with it and make it. It was just Sam Raimi in that one movie who did it. And the reason why is because the thing that has made Spider-Man so special for the longest time was Peter Parker. Because it's Peter Parker who kind of brings in this genuine will to do good.
Yeah.
It's that genuine belief in truth and justice in the way that Superman would have stood for it.
Yeah.
Right? But also just being a person and trying to juggle your life. Peter Parker really colored Spider-Man for the longest time because he just brought like this very genuine good soul into it.
Yeah.
And the other part to him too is that, like, just in the same way that if you had all the money and all the gadgets and everything, you couldn't be Batman. Because what makes Batman special is Bruce Wayne. It's the fact that Bruce Wayne dedicated his life to like learning martial arts, and I think somebody in one of the comics, it said that he technically holds 4 different PhDs.
Oh, dang.
And he's like a genius in technology and has like committed himself wholly to being able to like solve these wild problems on the fly.
Yeah.
It's like trying to do, imagine trying to do quadratic equations while doing Olympic level flips and stuff at the same time.
It's wild.
You know, that's what these superheroes have to do. And in Peter Parker's case, it's like Peter Parker is a genius.
Yeah.
He's a genius level person. He's able to solve these problems in chemistry, in physics, in quantum physics in some areas. I'm sure he understands nuclear physics if he needs to. He can understand, like, he can code, take apart the computer.
Which is, this side of Peter Parker is interesting because I'm sure in the comics it goes in depth that he's this smart. But in the movies, that's never come across to me.
Well, the way that it principally comes across is that every time you see him shoot those webs, he built that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one way that it does.
I guess that makes sense, but it's like, yeah, because I grew up with Sam Raimi's, so it was just a thing in his wrist. It was just his powers. And then...
But I mean, even that Peter Parker, what was his day job? He was going to university. He was like studying
he was smart, but it never... In every Spider-Man I've watched, it's never come across to me that Peter Parker is some insane scientific genius. I don't know, it's just
In the comics themselves?
Yeah.
He gets up to the Tony Stark levels.
Oh, dang.
Of, like, running Parker Industries, his own company. He's, like, very rich. He has a lab. He basically, like, he has to balance being Spider-Man with being Parker, the like famous tech CEO or whatever.
But even in, let's look at Into the Spider-Verse, Miles Morales.
Right.
At what point does he come off as a super genius?
Let me reintroduce here because, like,
yeah,
as much as we're talking about Peter Parker, what the Into the Spider-Verse movie does, and I think it's brilliant. It's a really cool thesis. It's the democratization of Spider-Man, because it's taking this good and honesty and like justice and also ability to do amazing things by being in the right path and believing in the right things and then believing in yourself. I could just keep saying positive things that can all be obviously ascribed to Spider-Man, but the point is that it's not just Peter Parker who can be that good, it's anybody. We've democratized Spider-Man, which is like a cool thing to do, to like lift people up, to be like, hey, it wasn't the thing that made Peter Parker such a great Spider-Man is that he was just a person.
Yeah.
If you are a person, if you just stay in touch with being a person who's believing in the right things and all that, and just not giving up and standing for them, and insert platitude here, you can also be as amazing as Spider-Man and do amazing things too, right? That's the other thing about the term hero, is that we can apply it to lots of people.
Yeah, I think that's what I liked about, that was the whole story of the second Sam Raimi movie, is that it's like, it's not the powers that make you Spider-Man, it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the same thing with Thor Ragnarok. It's like, you're not Thor, God of Hammers. And so it's like, he wasn't the hammer, it was him that was the hero.
Yeah.
And that whole thing.
So across the Spider-Verse, if you were going to try to explain the plot of this...
Oh, shoot, man.
Without spoiling it, in one sentence.
Without spoiling it, explain the plot?
In one sentence. In the fallout of an interdimensional escapade from the previous film, Miles is now forced to confront the interdimensional consequences of his actions, which seems to have affected what they quite literally call... what is it? A canon moment?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a canon event.
A canon event.
Yeah.
And because he interrupts that, he now has to face the consequences of the effects on his life and the effects on all lives he inadvertently affected. And then that includes the multiplicity of Spider-Men in the multiverse. This story brings in more Spider-Men. Into the Spider-Verse broke that concept at first because they did like a noir Spider-Man who was like Nick Cage playing his voice, and then John Mulaney did like Porky Pig Spider-Man, which is not literally that, but pretty close. Spider-Pig, yeah.
He had the power to levitate by smelling a good pie.
There was an anime girl in a robot spider suit, Peggy Parker, who was an awesome character.
Yeah.
So there's, and then principally Peter B. Parker. Peter Parker whose life doesn't go awesome.
Mm-hmm.
At least in that movie. And then it gets better later. But the point is that, oh yeah, and how could we not mention Spider-Gwen?
Oh yeah.
I say Spider-Gwen because that's the comic character that the movie is basing it off of.
Yeah, okay.
Right? You know, famously from the Sam Raimi movies, we always knew Peter Parker, and then we knew Mary Jane.
Mm-hmm.
But in truth, when in later iterations, it wasn't Mary Jane who was the love interest, it was Gwen.
Oh, okay.
Gwen Stacy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gwen Stacy in this universe loses her friend Peter, and in the process of becoming
No, she was Spider-Woman in that one.
Spider-Woman.
Yeah.
Spider-Gwen is the thing they call it.
Yeah.
In the comics, which is, it's not the first offshoot. It's funny. There's another offshoot of that. So there's a running gag in Marvel Comics where Deadpool looks like Spider-Man. So people occasionally mistake him for Spider-Man. Yeah. And it's led to Deadpool kind of like forming a comic relationship with Spider-Man. So they have like little adventures together. And the whole time they're together, it's like Spider-Man's usually the funny one. He's just pissed off that he has to carry Deadpool around. Another thing that kind of like poked at that was that at a certain point, a character called Gwenpool was pulled in.
Oh my gosh.
Through the universe. Well, another Gwen. And her in her universe. And this is a pretty funny take on this because it's actually not too far off from Spider-Verse stuff. In her universe, Gwen reads about the Avengers as comics and believes in them as comics. Her universe is completely normal. And her power is that when she gets pulled in to the Marvel universe, she knows everybody's thing. She's read them all in the comics. That's
so good. That's so clever.
Yeah. She just kind of, and then because she doesn't have any powers, just goes the Gwenpool route of, I guess I'll just use guns and swords and stuff like Deadpool does. And it works out for Deadpool, obviously. But yeah, so Gwen from the last movie, and I like something that they did in the last movie that they challenge here. In the last movie, they left off as just friends.
Oh, okay.
So at the end of the last movie, they'd seemingly solved this breach in the multiverse. Mm-hmm. Everybody got to get sent home back to their own universe. Everything seemed completely normal. Back to normal. Hero's journey complete. But now Miles has the confidence and the talent and the ability to be the next Spider-Man of his world. It could be quite a challenge to escalate this world, and it's like the thing I would be the most concerned about with this kind of IP. But they do it beautifully in this.
Yeah.
They bring you into a new world where now, like, based on the consequences of something that happened in a previous movie, we've now found a way to reconnect these universes and, like, have the Spider-Men meet each other. Mm-hmm. Plot-wise, you were telling me that despite, you know, because we did this whole perfect hero's journey with Miles and everything, you don't really feel like anything's going to catch you by surprise.
So that was the one issue I had with Into the Spider-Verse, because it was an amazing movie and I loved it. And, like, it was a new thing in terms of animation of what they were showing you and, like, animating a comic book.
Also very well put together. If I can pause real quick, is just, like, amazing music, great performances. 100%. The art style was great, as we said. The action was really cool. The humor in it was great. Yeah. It's like every beat
and the story was good.
Yeah, it's a brilliant
It was a really great story. It was enjoyable to watch. But the one thing I left with from Into the Spider-Verse not feeling good about was the story. Like, yeah, it was kind of a classic hero's journey. Or like coming of age.
It's not so much that, it's like nothing caught you by surprise.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that it was like it had this much intrigue in its plot.
Yeah, I'd say in terms of story, nothing caught me by surprise. Like there were cool surprising things in it, like him turning invisible, the Doc Ock lady. And, like, there were great jokes around that and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But the actual main segments of, like, generically, story-wise, nothing really, like...
It was like, oh, Uncle Aaron's the Prowler? Really? Yeah. Oh, I'm so shocked.
See, it's like... I was like, whoa, Uncle Aaron's the Prowler, but it's like, yeah, okay. There was
even if you didn't know.
It's like, because I didn't, and it caught me off guard, and it was cool and surprising. But there was nothing... It's like, yeah, okay, now that I've gone through this and been surprised... It's like, yes, I could have seen this. This is understandable.
Yeah.
But watching...
Like, the guy who's the same height and weight.
But now that we're into Across the Spider-Verse, it's like they've gotten through the origin story of Miles, and now we're going further into essentially the consequences of both his actions and just happenstance that he was involved in that people are blaming him for, which I think is a really important part of it, that he is like, because should we get into spoilers or are we getting out of that?
Well, we've pitched the movie already.
Yeah.
And it's not like people are coming to us before the fact, so.
But yeah, when it gets to that point where they reveal the big thing, that the spider that bit him was from another dimension. It's like, even essentially everything he did and how he's involved in anything is not his fault at all. Yet he's blamed for all of it.
It's just his existence is the problem.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like, that's what he's getting at the whole point. It's like, you don't belong. It was really good.
Well, it's like, and also the blame is misplaced. It's Spot.
Yeah.
Who brought the
It's like it's Spot that's doing it. Kingpin was doing the other thing. It was that whole... It's everybody else, but I think it's really... That's a good hero archetype that Miles gets blamed for everything. He's essentially the Christ in this. It's like he takes on the sins of others.
Took on the sins of Spot.
Yeah, literally. But yeah, it was a much more twisting, not average story, not a regular hero's journey. Granted, we're essentially only halfway through, considering it's part 1 of 2.
Yeah. If they call the next one Across the Spider-Verse Part 2, I'm going to be upset.
They said it. It's called Beyond the Spider-Verse. It's the vegan version.
Actually, it sounded cool until you said that.
Yeah.
I thought that sounded like a good name, and now I hope it's not processed. Plot-wise, I actually kind of agree with you there. Mm-hmm. It's like it's not that the movie fell short there, because it was fine. But it's the difference between an A and an A+.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse was just so much better story-wise than Into the Spider-Verse.
The plot world.
Yeah.
Is a very scary, daunting thing, because there's a lot of ways to do it that can be very lame. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about a device like this, my only criticism of the way they did it is that it's been done. And it's like... This is a hard criticism to make, but like Rick and Morty beat you to it.
It's the first thing I think when they walk into the Spider-Verse and there's a bunch of technology and there's a bunch of different Spider-Mans from all different universes.
Is there the Council of Spider-Man?
Literally.
It's like...
No, it's just one.
It's just one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the only mad one that doesn't make jokes.
That's what it takes. It's I mean, how... similar do the Spider-Man have to be? Only very vaguely. We met one today that hardly wore a mask and rode a motorcycle.
Oh my god. Oh, her.
Her power was that she rode a motorcycle?
I mean, I guess you're right. We never saw her actually do anything superpower based. Did she even shoot web at any point?
I don't remember it. I felt like maybe the power was that she could ride the motorcycles on the sides of buildings. But I was like, what?
Her motorcycle was a spider cycle.
What is spidery about this?
Her glasses. It's in the same way the Wild West Spider-Man, his horse had webs and a mask.
I mean, I think that guy could actually shoot webs too.
I mean, he literally shot webs from a gun, but we never saw him do it from his hands.
Well, I mean, again.
Oh yeah, it's an invention.
It's an invention.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a pretty cool invention if you're going to figure out in the Old West days how to shoot webs out of a gun.
The one thing that I don't particularly... It's not a huge bother. It's just one little negative to using a gadget is now it's a plot device whenever it runs out.
Yeah, welcome to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's always been the case.
Not in Sam Raimi's. Because his runs out when it's
not when
story
the Evil
driven.
Dead took over it in the early 2000s and made one of the most camp trilogies of all time. I love them, but also the
at least it's more mysterious and like in Spider-Man 2's when the Sam Raimi one his powers ran out. He's like, what the heck is going on? Not, oh dang it, I'm out of juice.
Again, the Sam Raimi one is not the norm.
It's just one little negative that now that it's a canister, all I'm thinking is the same thing when in every cowboy or movie involving guns, you go, how many times are they going to fire this pistol before they reload?
Hopefully 6. I don't know.
Exactly. Well, that doesn't happen in a lot of movies. They just keep firing and you never see anybody reload.
I feel like you're hung up on this.
It's the same way you're hung up on the audio mastering.
Well... that is apparently one of the problems with this film, and it's not just me. It is actually a lot of people had a hard time, for a number of reasons, understanding the characters. What I want to start with is that I don't think it was because there's anything wrong with the performances.
No.
I think there's a deliberate choice to have some characters be performed the way they were, and I don't think there was anything wrong with that. It is a choice that didn't work all of the time. It's not that the actors did a bad job, it's that the direction wasn't 100%. It did not account for a margin of error.
The direction?
People might not understand you if you're speaking that quickly.
So it wasn't necessarily the mastering that was the issue?
No. I'm saying one of the reasons.
Oh, okay.
Another reason was that there was a mistiming of like when I'm saying something and when something is blowing up. Or when the music is very loud at a certain wave and then when it's quiet, and if I say something during that time, you want it to be timed with the music so that it doesn't get lost in the sound, right? And yeah, it's basic. So I want to say that there's nothing wrong with the performances. There's also nothing wrong with the music choices either.
Oh no,
I had no issue with that.
Great.
I mean, didn't stand out as much as it did in Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse had that over it. What's Up Danger? Oh man.
Yeah, that was a great song, and so were many of the songs leading up to it. Like I thought that was actually a great ensemble. Into the Spider-Verse has a much longer track list. I'm not sure how much of it was produced for this. There were some parts that went so well together, like in the opening scenes showing Gwen, when she's like, when she leaps into action and she like starts doing her Spider-Man thing. It was like awesome. I was blown away by it. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Because like that opening scene where she's playing the drums and everything, is like, this is cool. I'm into it. I'm down to watch. And then I saw her leap into action as Spider-Woman. I was like, this is cool as hell.
Yeah.
And the way that the music played out, like her own little theme too, was incredible.
Yeah.
I do gotta say, I really love her character design. A lot. It's not just because the coloring. It's not just because, I don't know, the undercut. The ballet shoes on the spider thing. Yeah. Like that was on her costume were really cool. And it's interesting when you watch it later on in the movie, it changes to blue Converse after she leaves her dad.
Or as shoot, I forgot his name. As British Spider-Man says, Chucks.
Is he British Spider-Man?
Is he? He's from London.
Are you talking about Hobie?
Yeah, Hobie.
Okay. Hobie is the punk rock Spider-Man who is very Cockney.
Yeah.
Very, very Cockney. I can't say that his voice, when he said too many words in a row, was one of the harder ones to understand.
I don't know. I got him pretty good.
Most of the like when he says a couple words at a time, they're good. But when he speaks in sentences, and the part where he's introducing himself is like, I'm having some trouble here, and the mastering is not helping. So we're doing a difficult performance with a wild direction, and the mastering isn't timed properly to do this. It's like not awesome. And I'm not the only one. People lost lines of dialogue throughout this, even if they don't have crazy performances, just because of the sounds drowning each other out at the wrong moments. That's part of an issue. It's like, obviously there's some element of realism in all this, but it's like, it's an animation.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be well timed. You're supposed to show me the depth of everything that you did, and it's like, because you made one thing so extravagant, you've now obscured something else that you did. The point is, they're both really good, so let them both show, right? That was sound-wise, right? So it's not as good as the first one, I will say, for sure. And it would have been great if they'd given things more space to like shine with the mastering, because the performance, again, this is an all-star cast. Everybody is like really excellent at playing their character, from the villains to the various different types of Spider-Men.
Yeah.
To the family members, just the regular human family members.
Literally, even the bit characters that get one or two lines are really well delivered. There's nobody that I'm like, I didn't really believe you were Spider-Man and delivered that line.
Well, I love their take on Genki in this world is almost kind of like it's a jab at the Disney Tom Holland Spider-Man. Genki is the kid who is his roommate.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's like, I'm not gonna be your guy in the chair.
Yeah.
That's how it starts. I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna be your guy in the chair. I'm not your
I
sidekick.
love that.
It's a direct jab at like the exact same character.
Is that what happened
with Tom Holland Spider-Man?
in
Is that his Genki became his guy in the chair? I hope I'm saying that name right, Genki. But yeah. So there's that. Tom Holland himself doesn't seem to mind. He said it's like one of the best. He thinks it is the best Spider-Man movie.
Oh yeah,
Like,
Across or
yeah, Across. Maybe he said Into, but he thinks
Who
Spider-Verse is clearly better than his Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean it is.
I'm not.
I haven't seen any of his ones, but
No Way Home is really good. If you
Oh, yeah?
if you like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man,
right.
you'll like No Way Home.
Yeah, because he's in it.
To be honest, No Way Home was good enough to redeem Andrew Garfield.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Cool, because
That's
Andrew Garfield
hard to
plays
believe.
You think? I totally agreed with that before
'Cause
going into this movie, and I'm like,
Those were bad movies.
dude, but you come back to going like, oh, Andrew Garfield is really good in this. Like, he shines so well in this.
That's awesome.
They all do, really, but like, he did an incredible job.
Do you think I could watch No Way Home and understand it without watching the other two?
Yes.
Sweet.
The only thing that would prevent you in No Way Home is that it's not the other Spider-Man movie. It's the Marvel Cinematic Universe that you have to be familiar with.
Oh, so okay, so there's no point in watching the others, so I'll do it like Guardians 3.
Yeah.
And like Avengers Endgame.
You just kind of like, just accept it. You tend to be pretty good at just accepting the things that come
Yeah.
towards you, so I'm sure you'll have no problem with this. But Across the Spider-Verse, as being the second in this, it does not have that problem of like overwhelming. And that's one thing I like about this, is that from the very beginning, we see this is a Marvel movie, but it's not a Disney movie. You know, there might be like a little bit of an attachment to Disney as a property, but this is a Sony movie. Spider-Man has always been interesting like that because he's owned by Sony. Or at least he was. It was around the time that Sony's IP ownership kind of expired that Disney was able to do Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Before that, Sony had the complete ownership. So anything that was done for Spider-Man, whether it was a game or a movie, was made by Sony.
Oh, okay.
The new Spider-Man video games, they've had one for Peter Parker, one for Miles Morales. They're doing the second Spider-Man movie now, where apparently you'll get to switch between them. Very excellent video games, Sony. Yeah. Sam Raimi's movies, actually, Sony. So, they own that IP for a long time. And Sony is capable of some crazy cool things, and they're not tied down the way that Disney is.
Oh, interesting.
Disney, I feel like, has painted themselves into a corner.
Oh, okay.
With the way that they have to behave.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you can have some character, but it's like, this has to be watchable and understandable and enjoyable by a 6-year-old.
Yeah, yeah.
By a 6-year-old, or a 60-year-old, or a 16-year-old, or a 36-year-old. It's like the way that they do their demographics.
Yeah.
Have to like put everything in that kind of. I'm not saying they do it 100% of the time. That's why things like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 are good.
Yeah.
But they do it a lot, which are why things like the Marvels are not good.
It's another thing.
What if I'm wrong and the Marvels is amazing?
I just don't think it will be. Watching that trailer, I was like, this looks bad.
Brie Larson can ruin anything.
In regards to like Disney versus Sony, that I really, really liked about this movie. It was interesting. I watched a clip of another guy talk about why he hates Disney, and one thing he mentioned was that it's all these Disney movies are always about rebelling against your parents. Like, that's essentially a thing that's underlined in them, is ignore your parents, go do this thing, follow your heart. Frozen, because that was
that is quite literally like the girl. She's finally rebelling against their parents.
Yeah,
it's like the main song. Of the whole thing.
It's a pretty classic Disney thing. I think it's at least undertones, And I haven't seen The Little Mermaid in a long time, but maybe that's in there because I vaguely remember.
I think that
something
bit
like
is
that.
pretty explicit too.
Yeah,
because it's like she specifically don't go see Ursula.
There
and
you
then
go.
She goes and sees Ursula.
So that's sort of an underlying factor there. I really liked the different balance they put in Across the Spider-Verse, because they had the idea of rebelling against what people want you to do and go do your own thing, but they didn't frame it as ignore your parents and rebel against them.
All of the Spider-Men seem to honor their families.
Yeah.
Even like when they're having major disagreements, like they don't dishonor their parents in any way.
Which I think is really good.
It's especially something I didn't see coming from Gwen. Because like she seems like such a punk rocker, but like the way that she treats her dad and gives him that leeway in the beginning, it's like, wow, this kid's an angel.
Yeah, dude.
And the amount of patience this is.
Their moment near the last third, I almost cried. It was so good.
Very well done. Very well done. And a thing I love about her scenes with her dad are like the coloring in them is amazing.
Because I really like that about her world. It spots it quite early on. Don't eat these wires. You're good.
There's a distinction in the art style between when we're following Miles and when we're following Gwen.
Yeah, her world is much more colorful in changing ways, which I think
the music is different.
Yeah,
the colors are dynamic.
I like that they change almost every single shot.
Yes.
It was so good.
I first noticed it because they're like standing in her dark room, and then she goes over and hugs him, and she hugs him, and then the light changes on her sweater to make it like brighter.
Yeah,
like this pink light kind of cuts into the dark purple.
Yeah.
They do another scene where I was telling you about it earlier. There's a scene in Watchmen in the graphic novel where there's a color gradient so that you can actually see who is being the more emotionally tense and passionate somebody is, the redder they are in the scene, so that it can cut to Dr. Manhattan in it, and Dr. Manhattan is a cold blue.
Yeah. Right? Oh dang, man, that's so good.
In Across the Spider-Verse, they do a scene where again that cop dad is talking to Gwen.
Yeah.
And they're having a heartfelt conversation, and he is in warm colors, and her room, which is like in the darkness, is cool colors. And so Gwen inside of the room is always cool. She's detached from this. She's in a different world than her father understands, and her father is bright red with concern. Meanwhile, and then they cut, and you can see from outside, you see the orange walls, and then her in the doorway, and the doorway is like all bright and orange, but she's still in blue. Right? Within it. So it's got like a coldness, a detached sense to it.
Yeah.
And then I'll say and this is occasionally some things in this movie I felt like went a little over the top. Like a little epileptic for no reason. I thought the color shifts and the art styles and all these dynamic parts to like Gwen's story are really cool. But then in the third scene when she's talking to her dad, and then I'm like, what the heck are these backgrounds? You guys just literally did squiggly lines and asterisks? Well, what's going on?
That stuff, when it came to Spider-Gwen, I think her stuff was much more on that emotional spectrum. So when they changed the background to like swashes of color, it was because it didn't matter. What was important was that she was feeling this, and he was the full focus of her attention. The room essentially didn't exist, which I would think is what they were getting across by making the room actually not exist.
Is that I would trust that more if they didn't do what they did with Hobie, where he was just constantly in a different color.
That's where you can see there's a difference, because
some Spider-Men, because they come from different universes, have like different animation styles completely.
Yeah, but
there's a Lego Spider-Man.
There's a completely that's the thing though. They're completely different and in different ways. So Hobie, his whole thing is he's chaotic. He's complete chaos, and he introduces himself that way. Every action he takes and remark he makes is chaos. It's like when Hobie says something and somebody says, "You're not helping." He goes, "Good." Like that whole thing, his whole thing is chaos and being chaotic. So obviously even his character is physically represented in chaotic patterns that are moving. Like his jacket isn't attached to him. It's laid on top of him and it shifts around.
I don't disagree. I understand why they did it, and I think it was good that they did it. I just think they went over the top.
I think specifically with Hobie.
With Hobie, with some other areas, like it's a little too epileptic in some areas. Just like in flashes in the scenes in between, and like it's very high adrenaline, artistic, very high octane, lots of scenes are shifting. It's a very quickly paced movie, which is something that I love about it, is that it's got gravity in its slow moments that can sustain you, but at the same time it keeps the pace very quickly.
Yeah, it does. Nothing slows down to a point where you're like, okay, let's move on to the next scene, but nothing's skipped over.
But there are some areas where it's like this is a little too fast and we're showing like a lot of flashback information very quickly. I'm again mostly done well, just in some areas a little over the top, and that's where it gets uncomfortable to look at. But for the most part, again, I think it's almost a good thing that they went that far and failed, or not failed, went that far and didn't do it all very well.
Yeah,
because what they're doing is ambitious.
Yeah.
And this tells you that they did the ambitious thing, and I'm saying that the ambitious thing actually worked most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of the scenes like where they had physical real people in the...
I actually thought that was pretty interesting. Especially when Spot goes to some other dimension. He's in a convenience store run by some Chinese lady.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Is this a dig at everything everywhere all at once?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, there's got to be something there.
Maybe, yeah. And then there's like the one scene where Donald Glover's just in it.
Yeah, that one was weird to me. Because I'm not familiar with the Donald Glover thing, but you mentioned that it was because he was going to be Spider-Man.
There was a rumor that kind of circulated online that he was going to be the next Spider-Man. People were going to be like, oh, they're going to make the next Peter Parker black. Which is like, again, they did that at the time. In the comics, there's Miles Morales black. Yeah, so it's like pretty normal.
Here's the thing.
It didn't make sense to make Peter Parker black to me.
Yeah.
I was like, it's a little odd choice. But
did that happen? Or was that what was
that was the intent? So that's what people were getting
Yeah.
all up in arms about.
Yeah.
Since then, Donald Glover, he cameoed in Homecoming, and he seems to have played like some kind of other universe prowler in this one. So like he's the Uncle Aaron.
Yeah. Yeah.
That thing was like they even had that moment. Like, it's rude to stare. But I like Donald Glover, so I had no problem with it.
Yeah, I had no problem with it, but it was just one of those ones where
Lego Spider-Man cracked me up.
I was so hyped because when the fact that they showed him like for a decent amount, I was like, he's gonna be a prominent character in this.
I was excited. Yeah, no, it was a really cool little scene to be like, this is how different the Spider-Man get to be.
Yeah.
And it's true,
so funny, man.
I thought it was actually awesome when Spider-Gwen has that fight with the Leonardo da Vinci vulture.
Yeah. I thought
and that vulture funny. Is like colored like the Vitruvian Man.
Yeah.
Right?
I thought that was great.
So awesome.
And then he like pops out of the building and his mind is blown by a skyline. It's like, what is this?
But this, again, the democratization of Spider-Man kind of lends itself very well to that. Anybody can be Spider-Man. I guess, in your view, and the thing that Sam Raimi kind of put into all of us is like, all we need to be is get bit by the spider and I have unlimited webs in my wrist.
Well, no, because the big thing from Sam, like that's a side thing. Because that does make it more anybody can be the hero. Whereas... anybody can be the hero as long as they're smart enough to make a little web blaster and bring refills, which nobody ever shows anywhere.
There's pockets in the Spider-Man suit.
It's pretty tight.
That's actually why he does happen to have like that little weird belt line thing.
Who is it?
As part of his, it's in other designs of the costume.
Yeah, printed on the costume. Yeah, I get you. Oh, that makes sense.
But he does that like they're tiny cartridges. Yeah. I think the web shooters are cool because like at least having interface with them in the video game is like when you can put other types of gadgets and stuff in there.
Yeah.
And what it does is it also accounts for like there's a difference between him shooting the straight rope of web, him shooting like a gob of web, and then him shooting the net. It's like now I can see you're kind of like making adjustments on the nozzle here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? The way that they do it in the Avengers is like Tony Stark makes him the Spider-Man suit, so it's like super high tech. He's got like night vision and infrared in it and stuff like that, and there's GPS built into it, and the web shooters have like 100 different types of modes, and there's a little AI built inside of it. It's like almost too much, but it's still pretty cool in a lot of ways.
But yeah, the Sam Raimi thing, that's where it was just more. The second movie was a great demonstration of it's not the suit, it's not the powers that make you the hero. It's you willing and putting forth the action.
To be the hero. Yeah.
You choosing to go into the burning building.
And then the other part to it is consequences.
Yeah, I really liked how they did that in this movie, for the most part. But they demonstrated immediately in the first one once we get to Miles that it's like, I guess even with Gwen,
That's the thing that I don't quite understand. The thing that actually kind of loses me a little bit on the plot now that I think about it is, so the plot is because he was never meant to be Spider-Man, he's ruining everything. Why are canon events happening to a not Spider-Man?
Well, no, yeah.
It's like either he's dangerous enough because he's not a real Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like they even say it in the movie. Anybody can be Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure they say something like that. There's a whole ton of them.
At least that's the first one. In the first one, they say that.
Do they?
It's like it's the whole. The first one has this whole big theme behind it of taking on the mantle of Spider-Man. Yeah. And it's like, who is it that's behind the mask that makes that mask great?
You know what? It actually makes a whole lot of sense that he was never meant to be Spider-Man because in his universe there already was one. He dies in the first one. The Peter Parker of Miles Morales universe dies.
But again, as Miguel O'Hara explains it, like he dies in an event that was really kind of caused by Miles.
Yeah.
Because Miles had been down there, got bit, got wrapped up in this thing.
Yeah. Which was, I mean, that's just great. Not foreshadowing. Or maybe foreshadowing.
Miguel O'Hara is one of my favorite iterations of Spider-Man. Not because of the seriousness, but just because his character's the coolest.
Yeah.
Miguel O'Hara is Spider-Man like way, way, way in the future. He's like 100 years in the future. Like 2203 Spider-Man, basically. Where he's like super high-tech Spider-Man. And he's part of like a special type of government agency. He's like a spy almost.
Yeah.
But Miguel O'Hara wasn't even bit by a spider.
Oh.
He was bit by a bat.
Yeah, they showed that he was...
Yeah, he
came in and he's got fangs. He was going to bite someone. He's a vampire.
Pretty much.
Oh man, I want to see
He's not
more of that.
really even a Spider-Man. And I would wonder, like, the motorcycle lady got bit by a motorcycle or something. Like, kind of brings up the fun questions, like, what kind of Spider-Man do you think he would be? My name is Jared Reagan. I got bit by a spider.
I'd be the only one without webs because I'm not smart enough to make a web blaster. I have silly string. I'd be like, pachoo, pachoo.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know if Miles is smart enough to make a web blaster.
Yeah, he talks about astrophysics and dimension stuff in this one.
I mean, that's a good point.
He gets an A in like everything, and he's talking about going to Preston or Princeton
I think when you have the older Peter Parker show you how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that bad. He makes his own like web formula, then he builds his own little web blaster. It's like the web formula is just a code you got to crack in terms of the chemistry of it, and then the blaster thing is actually not that complicated to figure out. It's just
the thing is how to make it skin tight because you never see them.
Hey man, the first phones now, technology improves. You figure some stuff out. I don't know. I feel like I would not use the powers for good. There's a very good reason why I'm not Spider-Man. There's a very good reason. When we were talking about super villain earlier, you know, that's me. I feel like when I'm good, I'm an anti-hero. It's just like when I'm doing good, it's still for personal gain.
Yeah, I feel like I'd just be kind of selfish with it. It's like, I'd like to walk on walls. That'd be cool.
Neither you or me are Peter Parker.
Would I do anything special with it? I don't know. Maybe.
What do you think is going to happen in the third movie?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I'm most interested in, big spoilers here, what Miles is going to do to Miles.
Prowler Miles versus normal Miles?
Dude. That was the coolest reveal of the whole movie, was that he's in the wrong dimension. Like, oh my.
One of the parts I really liked about that was like when they were doing it, Prowler Miles is missing his hand.
Is he?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that at all.
It's like when they showed it really briefly that his arm was just like a rod.
Oh.
And then he gets handed the Prowler hand and has to like put it on.
Oh. Dang.
I like the part where like evil Uncle Aaron is like, I'm not the Prowler.
Yeah.
Like, that part was really
my
cool.
god.
It's like I was like, oh, he is in the wrong universe.
Yeah.
I was like, what kind of world is this?
Because that was the confusing thing when he walks outside with Uncle Aaron, not in Prowler get up, and then we see the Prowler take out Miles. And I was like, what the heck? Who is the Prowler? He's talking to Aaron like he's the Prowler. I'm like, but he's not. We know he's not. Oh, so
it kind of like it slowly dawns on you. It's like, oh, the Miles in this world, we have no idea about him, and then we're not given good things to expect of him the whole time. It's like Aaron's around, so he's still the Prowler.
Well, that's the thing, because
he has his dad is dead, so there's no one to boss him
the
around.
biggest thing in Into the Spider-Verse regarding Aaron is that it's like, yeah, he's the Prowler, but that aside, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
It's like the fact that he's a Prowler, he's not a good guy. He's working for bad people. He's doing bad things. And we see in Earth 42 where his dad dies and Uncle Aaron's the only one around. Now Miles is a bad guy and he becomes the Prowler.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, because Aaron, regardless of being Prowler, is a bad guy. And now he's the only major influence on Miles.
It's interesting to me that, like, the way the dialogue was plotted was so good.
Yeah.
That in that scene where he's talking to that mom from the other universe,
Yeah.
he kind of mentions talking to his dad.
Oh,
and
does
she
he?
just kind of giggles and shrugs it off.
Hmm.
You know, it's like, she doesn't explicitly say, it's like, Miles, you know your dad is dead.
Strange with that, because he's talking to his mom. He's got the afro.
Yeah.
He's talking about his dad and Spider-Man. And she's like, what's going on? And I was like, whoa, what's happening here?
That what Spider-Man part cracked up a lot of people in the theater. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah. But then Uncle Aaron comes in and the first thing he says is, you lost the braids. And I'm like, oh, something's up here. His mom not knowing who even Spider-Man is, like not even the concept of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is weird. And it didn't.
That was what tipped me off to, like, oh, this is the wrong universe.
Yeah. I didn't explicitly know wrong universe, but when he said, I guess I kind of implicitly knew it, because once he said
so
that,
the machine didn't follow his genetics back to his universe.
Yeah,
It followed the genetics left by the
spider.
interdimensional spider.
Dude, so good. The interdimensional spider.
Interdimensional spider.
I guess that's what it is.
Yeah. The reveal, the intrigue of it is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I'm like, I don't see where there's that much depth with Evil Miles to go. It's like, well, we know what put you on this path. It's very observable, very easy to see. It's like, and what are we gonna see you turn good?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, maybe. One thing I actually don't think will happen is that his dad will die. I think his dad's gonna live, because one main thing about Miles not being supposed to be a Spider-Man is that maybe his uncle dying was more so happenstance. Because with the lead up to it, everything made sense. But now we know he's not an original Spider-Man. He's not necessarily part of this multiverse, and so canon events don't necessarily affect the multiverse. I would assume,
yeah, I'm
affect
actually
it
like
the same way they would if a regular Spider-Man's dad
I'm having
didn't die.
trouble with these canon events now.
Oh, really?
As I'm thinking back to them, because I go, so which is it that's the most important canon event that still has to happen? Is it Uncle Ben dying, or is it Gwen Stacy's dad dying? Or the captain dying, in this case?
Yeah.
Which of these things actually makes Spider-Man Spider-Man? We always consider it's the Uncle Ben thing, right? Because that one is the most poignant. And then Miles' version of that was with Uncle Aaron.
Yeah.
Right? And then the Gwen's dad dying, it's like, well, that happened in Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. That's actually why we saw a little bit of him in Across the Spider-Verse. It's like, it's that plot exactly. And Andrew Garfield, notably, was the Sony Spider-Man. He was the second Sony Spider-Man. Before that was Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
At one point they take you to Indian Spider-Man.
Dude, I absolutely loved Indian Spider-Man.
He was very fun.
He was amazing, and Mumbattan was one of my favorite set pieces.
It was a really cool looking place.
I loved it.
Yeah. Really cool looking place, cool looking design. I love the costume design that he had.
It was so funny.
Sweet.
I loved when he was like with his girlfriend, and then the chieftain dad turns around and he's like, "Captain, this is your daughter, and I do not know her."
Yeah, I was
So
like, okay,
funny.
so wait, hang on. This is a canon event that was caused by Spider-Man from other universes coming into your universe.
No, the canon event was caused by Spot.
Spot, who wouldn't be in this universe unless...
So, sorry, what is your issue with this?
My issue is that the Indian guy's canon event is caused by interdimensional reasons, not because it's supposed to happen because he's supposed to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right? This is a distinction. It's like the canon event's not being messed with, but also messing with it is why the canon event's happening in the first place. So I'm back and forth now about these canon events. I feel like there's a little bit of
Here's the thing.
Also, just calling them a canon event, come on.
Yeah. Here's the thing with... Yeah, I think...
At least Terminator was like Nexus Point.
Yeah, I think there was I think it was the Steins Gate mangas that called it like... Or maybe even the anime that called it like a fixed event. Something like that. A little less obvious, but still essentially the same thing. But yeah, I think it's less important how one of these events happens and that it happens.
I need to rewatch Steins Gate. That was such a good show.
Oh my gosh, incredible.
Yeah.
I need to, maybe we should review that one time.
At some point. Raphskate.
We'll review every episode.
No. We're definitely not doing Death Note.
Oh, come on. When will you release my Code Geass rant?
I'm curious to see how the scale is gonna really pick up.
Mm-hmm.
They really made Miles out, like, by the time he escaped the Spider-Men and escaped Miguel,
yeah,
they made him out as he finally returns to his house. He's like, I'm awesome, I'm confident, I have no fear, I'm gonna beat everybody and everything. There was a little bit of the intonation, and I hate being in this position of comparing everything to John Wick. But this movie is very apt to do it because it introduces a plot, it builds the world with a second movie, and now in the third movie I feel like we're gonna get a similar thing of like, this is gonna be a lot of action.
You know,
we're gonna see a lot of Spider-Man fighting Spider-Man, and because it's almost like I feel like I was getting the same vibe as when John is like, tell them, Winston, tell them I'll kill them all. And it's just feel like,
for me, this is the same vibe as it's very apt comparable to the Shrek series, because in Shrek 1 they introduced the world and in Shrek 2 they expand it. When he says the kingdom of far away.
Shrek cast is coming, people. It's on the docket.
Oh man.
What do you give Across the Spider-Verse?
Probably a 9, because it took everything that was missing into the Spider-Verse and put it in there. Mainly, I don't know, whatever. Mainly for me, the story element, because that was what I felt was the only thing lacking in Into the Spider-Verse, because it was a great story, but it was expected. It was like expectable, predictable, that sort of thing. Whereas this one was not at all.
I'm the other way around. I think I would have given one like 9.5.
Oh yeah.
I was in the theater. I was like, there are moments in this Across the Spider-Verse that are a 10. Out of the theater, as I'm mulling it over, I was thinking 9. I started this podcast at a 9. Now I give it an 8.
Oh really?
Yeah. I feel like that. Not thinking about it more, like that canon event thing was not.
Oh come on.
Sound to me. The canon event thing is not sound to me. There's mastering issues. There's the movie's getting a little bit epileptic. They're a little over the top with some things. I wasn't like, again, they did a lot of things that were like on the edge of being bad.
Really?
They were good.
I
like
completely disagree.
If Hobie had one more line written, keep your beautiful mouth.
I could have gone for some more Hobie.
It was funny when it was 2 words. When it was a sentence, I was gone.
Nah.
And then even when it was 2 words, it's like, all right, we get it. You're an anarchist rebel who doesn't believe in any rules. Blah, 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 blah.
I freaking love Toby.
It's like any more words out of you, you get on my nerves. It's like you were the right amount of it.
I agree. They had the perfect amount to Hobie, but I totally could have gone for a little more.
And this is going to sound not very apt, but it's like the first time you're introduced to Miguel O'Hara, it's like, cool, super cool, and also had the little bit of that talk back. It's like, did you just call me? It's like, you know, he was like joking around with Gwen the first time you see him. After that, it's like it loses all sense of joking.
Yeah.
Another thing they did that kind of I wasn't a huge fan of is that they repeated flashbacks.
Did they?
Yeah, they did. They didn't just let a flashback be a flashback. It's like they had to repeat it. They showed it the first time when Miles meets Spot, and they go through that. He kind of makes contact with him in a way that reveals that vision of his dad dying when the bullet falls on him.
Yeah.
And then they show you the exact same thing again.
Yeah.
Or like they did this shot twice where you'd see Miguel in the video with his fake family, and then it like flashes away from the hologram to reveal his face. They did it twice, almost the exact same way. It's like, do you get in here and watch that video every day and then stare sternly at where it used to be? It's like, what is the point here?
I don't know, none of that bothered me. Especially, I could see it with the Miguel thing, because that one was a bit of just a twinge it noticed for me. But the Spot one, I actually thought that was pretty apt because it was in a realization. Because the first time you see it, it's not a flashback. That's just a thing he's experiencing. And then at the end, once he realizes what Spot's doing and what him going to his universe is going to cause, that's when he flashes back to it.
Maybe I'm being too critical because this is just the way that I...
You are. I don't know why you hate Spider-Man.
It's just the way that I tend to evaluate movies. I started at 10. I love all movies. They're all great.
Oh, okay.
I started at 10, and then I'm like, where does this fall short of perfect?
Yeah.
Because I'll enjoy it in the theater, and then when I walk out, I go, okay, what wasn't absolutely 100% A+.
Yeah. My favorite way to grade these things on the 1 to 10 scale is actually with YMS, Your Movie Sucks.
We've probably brought this up literally every time we do a movie podcast of like how we do this. So it's like you get one version from you, one version from me.
Yeah.
But no matter what, we're always like within a point of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we like walked out of the same experience. It's been true of like me and AD too. When we did Thor and then we did Knives Out.
I still love Andres giving his opinion of the movie in the Discord chat and going of Avatar 2, going absolutely awful, hated it, it was the worst thing I've ever seen, 7 out of 10. I'm like, which is it, dude?
It's like, because we can tell you all day about the visuals.
Yeah.
It's like the actual plot was not good.
Oh man.
Yeah. I am interested in seeing the third one.
Oh, 100%.
I just hope I don't get annoyed out of it. I will say again, the visual artistry, the animation style, all that amazing. Shouts out to Arini, a friend of mine who worked on the animation for it. Did a phenomenal job. Again, people ask me, if you ask me how this movie is later after this podcast, I'll just tell you phenomenal. I won't give you the number. I won't give you the number and go into this tirade that's going to make you go,
yeah,
and reconsider. Because this, you should see this in theaters. I actually, one more thing. There were parts of it where they did this like 3D effect to kind of like center certain items in the frame or certain objects or certain people, and it just, they deliberately blurred and obscured other parts of the scene. I noticed it like some of the time it was because of the comic effect of like trying to show those little dots of the comic, and then sometimes it just kind of blurred other things entirely. It's like hard to see. Yeah, but it's again visually ambitious.
Yeah,
this movie. I'm pretty stoked to see the third one.
Yep.
I hope they don't end it with Miles will return or something.
I hope they end it with Spider Shrek. Surely he's in the multiverse.
The Forest Creek will return on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, other social media and podcasting platforms at The Forest Creek, youtube.com/@TheRealForestCreek. We got fun, cool, exciting, interesting stuff coming, both for your entertainment pleasure and for your media production services, for which you can get in touch with us at theforestcreek@gmail.com or on our website, theforestcreekweb.com. Check out our other cool stuff. We got we've done a bunch of podcasts. This is number like 30. This is 36 that I'm going to release right here.
I thought it was number 7.
We have other stuff planned too, from the book and philosophy talks that we do to a lot of movie reviews, especially one crazy weekend in July. I'm preparing for it now. It's back-to-back movies. It's Barbie, it's Oppenheimer, and it's Indiana Jones.
I'll be there for Barbie.
You don't have. I get tired of you doing these too many times too. So
good.
But yeah, for that, stay tuned. Like I said, The Forest Creek will return.
Boom.
Goodbye.